Opening day is finally upon us, and of course, Mother Nature has to ruin the fun, and for the second year in a row, cancel Phillies opening day by one day, which isn't a huge deal, but still a little bit disappointing. Regardless, we got plenty of news about the Phillies, who have just wrapped up spring training, as well as a bunch of other sports teams and more here on this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, I'm your host, Aidan and I am joined by a slightly smaller panel, but you still have some usuals on the show. So I got Shane Nolan to my immediate left. Shane, how are you?
I'm doing good.
And then we got Brayden. Brayden, how are you?
What's up? I'm doing good.
Good to have you guys here. Riley unfortunately couldn't make it, and she'll be out next week as well, but we will look forward to having her back whenever she does show up again. But outside of our missing panelists, we're going to get into the show, and starting off with the Phillies, who, as we mentioned, the opener, just finished spring training, finished 9-15-7. Yeah, they had a whopping 7 ties in spring training, which I've never really seen a number like that before. They did make a couple of pretty big moves since we last talked about them. They traded Jake Cave to the Rockies for cash considerations and then re-signed Matt Strahm to a 1-year, $7.5 million contract with a 2026 team option. Shane, both these moves are pretty interesting. We're going to start with Matt Strahm first. How do you feel about this signing from him?
I like the signing. I mean, last year when I think it was Ranger Suarez who couldn't pitch for the first couple games of the season last year, Matt Strahm stepped in and he did really good. And then he got moved to the bullpen and he did really good coming out of the bullpen as well. So this is a good. I think this is a good signing for the Phillies.
Yeah, when you look at it, Matt Strahm last year, 9-5 with a 3.29 ERA in 56 games. As you said, he was good as a starter, good as the bullpen. It's nice to have a pitcher like that, especially as they wait for Mick Abel, who we presume will probably be making his first Major League start sometime this year. But until Mick Abel is ready, or at least will be playing out some of those team options that they have, it's good to have someone like Strahm who can fill in.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and he's also a lefty, and you know you needed an extra lefty in there last year in the starting rotation because of Ranger Suarez. But yeah, I mean to have a versatile pitcher like that, at least it was a good thing that he didn't get worn out because he was never a starter. He was always a bullpen pitcher, and you had the thought of maybe him pitching so much as a starter is kind of going to wear him out towards the end of the season, but it didn't. So yeah. That helped them.
Yeah, and the Jake Cave trade, I've seen very mixed emotions from that between Phillies fans. Some people really liked Jake Cave, thought that he was great off the bench. Other people were more just like, it's a guy that you can fill in pretty much any time with a rotational player. How do you feel about this trade that the Phillies made?
Thank you. I am happy that he is gone. Last year, like I said plenty of times before, I don't know why he was on the postseason roster whatsoever. I don't know why he even got called up last year, and they sent down Cody Clemens when they did. But yeah, I mean, he is a guy who is a spring training merchant. He is a minor leaguer merchant. He has good numbers in the minor leagues in spring training, but when he comes up to the major leagues, he can't hit. He can't do anything. He's not a good fielder, not a good hitter. I'm so happy that this trade happened, and the fact that they brought in Whit Merrifield to kind of replace that bench bat. Obviously, that happened before the trade. But, yeah, I'm just happy this trade happened.
Yeah, I personally didn't want to say it, but, yeah, pretty much my entire thoughts as well. That .212 batting average doesn't really look that good, honestly. So I'm totally fine. I'm glad we got at least something back for him. So I feel like this is a good trade all around. As for opening day, yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to be when it was scheduled. It's going to be on Friday. That being said, the biggest news is that Zach Wheeler will be starting opening day. Aaron Nola had started 6 consecutive opening days. He will no longer be the starter. And what's interesting, Shane, is that Nola said that he kind of preferred Wheeler. And I thought that was a little bit interesting with that dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, they're good friends, and obviously he wants to see Wheeler be able to get that opening day start. I mean, Wheeler has been the Phillies' best pitcher since he came to the Phillies, and he's been arguably one of, if not the best pitcher in the league since coming over to the Phillies. And I mean, to me, in 2021, he should have won, or 2022, he should have won the Cy Young Award. But yeah, I mean, Zach Wheeler deserves this. He's been so good in the postseason as well for the Phillies, and to me, I just think this is the right call.
Yeah, so first two series, both at home against the Reds and Braves. Going to be very interesting, Shane. How do you see these first two series shaking out?
I mean, obviously the Braves series is going to be probably the toughest one, obviously. But I mean, for the past couple of years, they've played against the Braves and on opening week, they've swept them both times in 2019 and 2021. So hopefully that can happen again this year. But once again, it's going to be a tough series, as it always is against the Braves. And then the Reds, I mean, they're a young team. They're a young team that can be good this year. They have, Ellie De La Cruz and Hunter Green as a pitcher. So yeah, I think this is going to be a tough 6 games coming up.
It's definitely tough 6 games, as Shane said, but we are just very excited that baseball is finally back, not in spring training, but actual regular season games. So very excited for Phillies baseball, who we'll definitely be covering as the season progresses. We're now going to be going to the Sixers, who, as we mentioned last week, really tough road trip on the West Coast. They did not play well at all. So first they lost to the Suns, 115 and 102. They then lost to the Lakers, 101-94. Were able to salvage at least one game, beating up on the Clippers and their former coach, Doc Rivers, which was a nice win, but then they proceeded to lose the following game to the Kings, 108-96. Brayden, look, I get that some of these guys were hurt. I get that these teams in the West are really good. This was a really disappointing road trip.
It definitely was. I mean, going off and only winning 1 game of 4 is never good. It's horrible. But as you said, this is a very tough group of teams. I really am I have mixed emotions kind of looking at this, because on the one hand, should we be beating these teams? I don't know. But also on the other hand, our average points per game this season is 114.5. Looking at this, we would have won every game besides the Suns, but only be down by a point. I mean, I feel like we should be doing better. I know don't have Embiid, obviously, but I mean, some of these guys had less than 10 points, who should be getting mid-teens at minimum. So, yeah, it's disappointing.
Yeah, I think the most jarring game for me was the Sun one. So Tobias Harris, who's been playing much better at this part of the season than he has the beginning of the year, did not play, missed a game with an injury, and Maxey only scored 6 points. Brayden, when a guy like Tobias Harris is out, you need Maxey to step up, who right now is the Sixers' best player. When he doesn't show up, there's no way you can expect the team to win any games. And I think that's the most unfortunate part about this road trip.
It is. It's horrible. I mean, without Maxey, and if he plays bad, I mean, I think it's safe to say we're on the same level as I hate to say it, but as a Wizards, or as a bad team. We're not, without him, we're horrible. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But it's hard, because I don't want to put all the pressure on Maxey, which so far he's handled it great, and he's done a good job. Now he's had a game where it's bad. I don't think we should all beat up on him, because, like I said, after Embiid, Maxey's the reason why we won games. So,
no.
Yeah.
And the Sixers still haven't really figured out the center problem. Both Mo Bamba and Paul Reed they have decent games, but at the end of the day, they do not make up for Embiid's absence. And Brayden, as we get closer to the playoffs, I do believe Embiid will be back. Embiid seems to say that he's going to be back. The Sixers seem to say that Embiid's going to be back. But if Embiid does have to exit the floor at some point, when he gets subbed off, which is going to happen, I can't trust either of these two guys to step up when they haven't in his absence.
No, I mean, you can't, and there is some hope, because, okay, maybe they can prove themselves. No, they both showed they're both can be good backup centers at that. Definitely not starters. Yeah, as you said, especially with Embiid, he's not going to play a lot when he comes back. I mean, he's going to be on limited minutes. So, it's going to be tricky to figure that out when he comes back.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when Embiid comes back, he's going to be ready to go because the Sixers right now are really struggling in the standings. They're back in the play-in after making it out last week, and they are just right there with the Heat, who are also 39-33, but their Heat are playing much better right now, and the Sixers are playing worse. And then you got the Bulls 38-34. The Bulls, we're pretty sure they're going to finish under 500, but they're still playing better than they did at the beginning of the year. And then you got the Hawks 32-39. I don't want to discredit the Hawks fully because they have beaten the Sixers in the past in the playoffs, but the Hawks just don't look like that sort of team to pull an upset against the two teams in the Sixers and Heat. And when you look at the standings, Brayden, yeah, the Sixers still could get out of the play-in, but they do have one game left against the Heat, and I think that could be a pivotal game about where you either get in the play-in or try to get out of the play-in. Bunch of different scenarios, but I think that is a game that will definitely be circled on most people's calendar.
Oh, yeah, that game is going to be crazy, and who knows if I even want to watch it or look at the score, because I 100% agree. I think everyone can agree with that's going to decide what happens this season. I think we're going to be relatively close with the Heat towards the end of the season. I mean, if something changes, but most likely it's going to be a one-game difference. Chances are it's going to be that game.
And the thing is with the Heat, they've been in this position before. Last year they were an 8 seed and still made it to the championship. I think the difference, Brayden, I see you shaking your head at that. The difference is that they have a guy like Jimmy Butler who consistently always shows up in the playoffs. And for me, with the Sixers, they just never have had a player to do that. Yes, Embiid has been great in the regular season, but he's never stepped up the way Jimmy has in the playoffs consistently throughout his career. And I think that's what makes me nervous about the Sixers struggling without Embiid, is I don't know how much better they can play with him at this point.
Exactly. I mean, how much more can Max even step up? I mean, he's been, for most part, getting at least 30 points a game. I mean, it's hard to expect much more than that. So, yeah, as you said, I mean, it's going to be so tough because we don't have that person that will step up.
Yeah, so we will have to see if the Sixers can get up in the standings. I mean, when you look at these upcoming games, I felt bad about the road trip. I feel maybe even worse about these games. So first you got the Clippers at home, then you got to travel to the Cavs and Raptors, and then you got the Thunder, who are right now fighting for the top spot in the West. So yes, the Sixers did have to go on a tough road trip. They didn't have to play one of the best teams in the West, which is what the Thunder are. And then you have to play the Clippers, who are going to want a little bit of revenge after that game with the loss at home. And then the Cavs are one of the best teams in the East. It is nice that they have that Raptors game in, but Brayden, when you see these three games besides that, I have like a sinking feeling a little bit about it.
No, yeah, I agree with you. And even the Raptors, who are the worst team on there, we can't even put a confirmed on that right now with the Sixers, how they're playing, which is horrible. But, yeah, I honestly think, I know obviously Cavs, we somehow played good against them and beat them, so we'll see how that goes. But once again, they're going to want revenge because we keep beating them. And then the Thunder's the Thunder. But I think the toughest game is going to be the Clippers. We just went to L.A., beat them. They all played horrible. I mean, I think the best player on the Clippers that game was Kawhi, who only had like 20 points.
Yeah.
They're all going to want to play better, especially James, annoyingly enough, in Philly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that will be – and I think Doc Rivers also wanting to come back as well is going to be very, very tough. So, Brayden, I know we don't like making predictions. They haven't gone very well past week. Quickly, how do you think the Sixers do in this 4-game set?
I think we'll go 1-4. We're going to beat the Raptors.
All right. I feel that. Yeah. That's sort of when I was looking at this as well. That was sort of the same thought. So we will see how that all goes. Hopefully we're wrong. I sort of have a feeling we won't be. So we are now going to go to our next team in the Philadelphia Flyers, who, look, if the Sixers have struggled, Flyers haven't been much better. Yes, they were able to get a few points in this past week. Actually, there was only one game where they didn't get any points. But when you look at the way that they've lost some of these games, 3-2 to the Hurricanes in overtime, 6-5 to the Rangers in overtime. The win against the Bruins was nice, but then they lost to the Panthers 4-1. Shane, the Flyers, you could tell that they're there. They're so close, but they keep losing to these really good teams in the East, and it makes it seem like they're farther away than they actually are.
I mean, yeah. I mean, during the seven-game gauntlet, they went 2-3-2. I mean, that's not bad for what this team is. I mean, yeah, I was upset obviously at some of the losses they had. But the last couple games, against these last 4 games that they had, they were the better team against all these teams. I mean, in the Hurricanes game, I feel like you could have won that. You could have won that game, but there's a couple opportunities where you just miss the net a lot, and that's part of the problem with the Flyers is they don't have that pure sniper on the team yet. And then the game against the Bruins, they won. They played really well in that, and then once again in the Panthers game, they got out-goalied in that game. I think they played very well in that game again. They had more shots than the Panthers did, and then in the Rangers game, once again, they outshot the Rangers again. They outshot the Rangers and played better than the Rangers. But to me, in that game, I mean, there was a couple goals that Erston probably should have had, and I mean, they were fighting back and forth with the Rangers, who are the best team in the league and the first team to clinch a playoff spot in the league. So to me, I mean, I'm not upset at the last 4 games that they had.
Yeah, and it was good to see Ersan play pretty well in a lot of these games outside of the loss to the Rangers where he just kind of struggled. One of the really positive signs that I saw, Shane, is that Travis Konecny, who had gone a bunch of games without scoring a goal, in the last 4 games has 4 goals and assists. If the Flyers want to make a run for a playoff spot, he needs to step up, and it's good to see that he's stepping up in these big games.
Yeah, he does. I mean, like you said, the pass before, I think he didn't score in the Hurricanes game, but I mean, before that, he was on a goalless drought, and then scored in the Bruins game and scored in the Rangers game to tie that game 3-3 in the Rangers game. And yeah, he's one of the players who needs to step up and needs to be consistent with scoring. Him, Tippett, Farabee, these are the guys who are going to need to step up and kind of carry this team into the playoffs.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Rangers game. They had a lot of shots they could have probably made. They had 41 shot attempts in the game. So it's not like, and this is something that I've talked about with the Flyers before, where they have a bunch of opportunities. It just feels like they can't always finish. And I was hoping by this point in the year that problem could be fixed. Because it's not a problem that you're getting a ton of shots. That's actually something that would be much harder to correct if they weren't getting all these shots. But to not put them in at this point, to me, that feels like it's still also a problem.
Yeah, I mean, in the first period, they outplayed the Rangers in the first period, but a lot of the shots they took were right at Shesterkin. I mean, there was they didn't have any really high danger scoring opportunities. Same thing in the I think it was the Panthers game in the first period. They had 22 shots taken and only 7 of them hit the net in that first period. But once again, in that game, they got out-goalied. But yeah, in the Rangers game, I mean, they did outshoot them. They obviously were able to take it to overtime. But yeah, that's part of the problem with this team is there's a lot of opportunities where they just miss the net when some of them probably should go in the net.
Yeah, and when you look at the standings, the Flyers could have used one of these overtime wins. Yes, the points are very nice, but the Capitals have been playing much, much better since the trade deadline. They're right behind the Flyers for that 3rd spot, which if you get in the top 3 spots in any of the conferences, you automatically get a playoff spot. You don't have to fight for the wild card. The Devils are also slightly behind. The Islanders have been playing a little bit better, but are still behind. But Shane, when I see the Capitals and the fact that the Hurricanes and Rangers are, at this point, way out of the Flyers league, that scares me a little bit, especially to see the Capitals playing this well since the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing very well, only 1 point behind the Flyers now. So, I mean, but it was important for at least the Flyers to get as many points as they could during that stretch of games in which they did, and they were able to stay 1 point. But once again, you also have the Red Wings, who are 1 point behind the Capitals for that last wild card spot, but they have a tough stretch of games coming up. They play Hurricanes, Bruins, Panthers, and Rangers like that, like the Flyers just did. So I think that it's going to be the Flyers and Capitals, to me, who are going to be the last 2 teams in the Eastern Conference for the playoff spot. It's just going to come down to who's going to take the 3rd spot in the Metro and who's going to take that last wild card spot.
Yeah, that's very good to hear for a Flyers team that really hasn't even been in conversation for any of these spots in recent years.
Yeah, it is, especially because of what everyone just thought they were supposed to be start the season.
Yep, so good to see the Flyers playing somewhat well. We're now going to go to the Union, who also got off to a very slow start. However, they just got their first win over the Timbers in a 3-1 game. Julian Carrazza got 2 goals in that game. Good to see Andre Blake playing his first MLS game of the season. But the Union are still 1-3, 9th in the Eastern Conference. Brayden, as good as it was to see this win, those 3 ties, it does kind of hurt a little bit now that they finally did get a win.
I mean, a little bit, yeah, to be a little critical on them, but also we're undefeated. One of the few teams left. I can't even remember if there's any other teams left without a win or with no losses. I mean, that's 1-3. It's not great, but also we're a game behind most teams. We're supposed to play another one. Oh, rain, just like the Phillies. Funny how that works out. But yeah, so we're a game behind, and right here, as I have pulled up. Cincinnati in 11, first spot. But then Miami, New York Red Bulls, Crew, and Toronto all have 10 points, which is 4 more than what we have. So 1 win. We're behind all of them by 1 point. So we're already a game behind. We're not far off any of them. And even right now, we sit in 9th, which is a qualification spot. New thing MLS has. But I'm not too worried. We did start off a little slow, but I don't think there's anything to worry about.
Yeah, the only other team that's undefeated in the East, as you mentioned, FC Cincinnati is the only other team that does not have a loss. So it is good to see that the Union are playing close to the best team in the Eastern Conference standings. Brayden, when you look at it, I think something that's really positive for the Union, they just have so much veteran experience to me that, yes, it was a slow start. And I feel like it is still fair to be a little bit critical of them getting off to that slow start. But I do feel confident that with the veterans they have, and now getting Blake back as well, who's finally healthy, I feel like there's just a lot of positive vibes that this team could potentially get to and get out of this 9th spot and move up in the standings.
No, yeah. I mean, so far the best players on the team have been the older guys and guys who have been around here for a little bit. But also one that I will add on to that is the Union have done a great job, especially at youth development. They're one of the best teams in the MLS that have a great youth academy. I mean, we have a few U.S. men's national teams players that have come through the MLS, or that's come through the Union. Mark McKenzie, Brayden Aronson, and his brother Paxton Aronson. So we have plenty of guys that come through the youth, and then Quinn Sullivan, who just scored against Portland. Sorry, I can think of it. Who just scored against Portland, who just turned 20. We have lots of young players and older players. I think we're, with our roster, one of the best teams still to come.
Yeah, it definitely is a very good roster. The one thing that does worry me just a little bit, and again, they did get off to a slow start, so maybe when they play some of these better teams, it won't be a problem. But it does concern me that they struggled against some of the teams that aren't great, and then they still have to play the best teams in the Eastern Conference. So does that worry you at all?
Not really, because I've watched MLS my whole life, and the weird thing about MLS, which is unlike other leagues, unlike any other soccer leagues around the world, one team who could be title contending could be in one of the worst teams the very next season. The MLS is a very weird league, and things like that happen all the time in both conferences. So a team doing bad last season, they could be great this next season. I mean, our next game is against Minnesota, who's currently first. Yeah. Last season, they made playoffs, but they weren't even the top, even close to the top seed. That's just how it goes. Obviously, Cincinnati was good, and they still are good, but it doesn't really concern me all that much.
Yeah, now that they beat the Timbers, does that raise your confidence when they're playing, as you mentioned, the best team in the Western Conference in their next game?
Yeah, I mean, the Portland Timbers are a very good team, and they added a lot of good people. I mean, for their first game, they killed the Rapids, which was horrible for me to see because I love the Rapids. But they're a very good team, and to see we go in there, and they also played better than us, which was concerning. We outscored them. It was nice.
Yeah, so good to see the Union finally get their first win. We're now going to go to Fast Five with our favorite segment, Talking Baseball with Shane Nolan.
Well, Brian Snicker was on an Atlanta radio station a week ago or so talking about that his wife isn't going to be coming to Philadelphia for the opening series against the Phillies when the Braves faced them because of last year in the playoffs when fans were heckling at the opposing fan bases that were there, and I guess his wife and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Boo-hoo, get over it, stop crying. And then some guy that was on the radio station, his name's Steak Shapiro, and he was saying it's despicable, it's only one fan base. Your fan base trashed the field twice, 10 or so years ago, and then this year, and we're not the only fan base who does it, okay? LA, people out in California are stabbing people at their games, all right? So shut your mouth. Your name's Steak, okay? Like, what kind of name is that? And Brian Snicker, see this? Put a face on it, make it bigger, and that's you, okay? So stop crying.
So I do have a public enemy list. I think Shane just has one public enemy, and it's Brian Snicker. So, Shane, will you be showing up to a game to heckle him?
I mean, I hope I can go on Friday.
So we will see how that all goes. We're now going to go to World Series predictions. A lot of good teams this year. Shane, who do you have as some of the top contenders this year?
I think it could either be the Phillies and Baltimore. I think maybe Houston gets back there. Texas, I think they can repeat. Yeah, there's a lot of good teams this year. But to me, I think it's going to be the Phillies who win it this year. Not trying to be biased, but to me, this is their year. It just has to be. I mean, the window's probably closing soon on this type of core player. So to me, this is the Phillies' year, and to me, they have to get it done this year.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying the same thing about the Phillies, so we'll see if they can finally get it done. This year, we're now going to move to NBA. So, Brayden, a lot of teams in the Western Conference that are really fighting for a spot in the East. It's pretty clear the Celtics are the best team. But who do you think is the cream of the crop right now in the Western Conference?
Right now, and outside of the Nuggets, I think there's only 2 other teams that are competing that are in the race to win. Sorry for my words. I think they're Oklahoma and Minnesota. I think Minnesota, even though they're up there, probably not. I think it's mainly between Thunder and the Nuggets. But I think with Nuggets' experience, being a very good team for a while, I think the Nuggets are going to edge out and continue to be the best team.
Yeah, there is some dark horse candidates as well. I've heard a lot of people throw out the Clippers just with the star power. And I think one of the teams that's a little bit of a, if you're going to go for the really serious odds, if you're super into betting, the Lakers are kind of a popular pick as well, just because they've struggled a little bit. I agree with you, Brayden. I don't really see that working out, but hey, you know what? We'll see how the playoffs all shake up.
The crappy Sixers. Good job.
Yeah. We're now going to go to another type of basketball. How's your bracket doing, by the way? We're going to do a quick bracket check.
So we're going to talk about not my main bracket, because that one you don't want to talk about. But my second bracket is actually doing fairly well. But it was kind of my second thought. But regardless, not counting that, I have North Carolina, Clemson, Purdue, and Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And so far, they're all doing good, but they all have really strong games coming up. Yeah. So we'll see how that's going to go. How about you?
Yeah, my bracket's not going so well. So mine is, I think, 20 million. So not 20th million. Yeah, it's not good. It's really not good. Most of the groups I'm in last. I still have Houston left to win, but they have a really tough game against Duke. So we'll see how that all goes. Yeah. My women's one's looking great. I feel really confident outside of Stanford. And Shane, you just get to hear us banter a little bit about our brackets and sort of not have to deal with the stress of watching a bunch of college basketball games.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I didn't fill one out, but I do got one question. Are you in the game?
Okay. We will move on from that question because I am in the game when I'm talking about my public enemy for the week, who is Greg Sankey. Now, if you don't know who Greg Sankey is, he is the SEC commissioner, and he recently said that the SEC got a couple teams that were left out due to teams getting automatic bids for winning their conference. Well, it was really funny to see Kentucky, who is one of the best teams in the SEC, lose to one of those automatic bids in Oakland, who just beat the crap out of them. Excuse my language a little bit. And then also you saw Grand Canyon and Duquesne, who both were teams that struggled at certain points, win their conference, and then also win in the opening rounds. And the SEC went 3-5 in those opening rounds. So, Sankey, you really got to learn when to maybe shut your mouth for a little bit and just let the games play out. This is March Madness. We know there's upsets. Yeah, your team might have gotten left out. The Big East feels the same way. The difference is the Big East has 3 really strong teams. I haven't seen an SEC team that I feel that confident in, honestly, that's still left outside of Tennessee, and we'll see how that all goes. So that wraps up this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check us out on social media at Twitter and Instagram at Sports Talk LTV. We will make sure to keep you updated with everything going on. As you see, there's a lot of Philadelphia sports going on right now, and there'll be more with the Phillies starting opening day. So make sure to check us out. Thanks for watching this episode, and make sure to watch us next week.